He's been selected Coach of the Year, and I know most, if not all of you, have followed his career very carefully. He's coached at William & Mary, NC State, Arkansas, and Minnesota prior to coming to the University of Notre Dame. Many of you will recall that 3 years ago in this room we had Lou Holtz on videotape, and it was one of the most important and popular parts of that meeting agenda. Today we're very fortunate to have Lou Holtz in person. We're delighted to have you, Coach. We congratulate you on a great first season and especially a very exciting win last week over USC. Come forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank. An introduction must have been written before we went into this season when you talk about being successful. I know that 10% of you won't remember 10% of what is said 10 minutes after it's said. And many things I'm going to say you've heard before on videotape, but I sort of think it's similar to the Lord's Prayer. It doesn't change, but it's still pretty good. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to speak from my heart. First thing I want to say, Frank, is that introduction's the type I could listen to all day, and just like you, I thought I was going to have to. It was very nice, but it was 9 minutes in duration. I see up here you have the sign teamwork. I went to the University of Notre Dame, and the first meeting I told them about if we were going to be successful was because we're all going to have to subjugate our own welfare for the welfare of the overall team. I told them the story about the two guys, their bosom buddies. I mean, they did everything all through life. All of a sudden, they're sitting around a campfire out there and in the wilderness, and across the field came a big grizzly bear running towards them. One guy said, "You see that bear?" And he said, "Yeah, sure do." And he immediately got down to open up his bag, took out a pair of Adidas tennis shoes and started to put them on. The guy said, "You don't think you can outrun that bear, do you?" He said, "I don't have to." He said, "I only have to be able to outrun you." When you talk about teamwork, you're talking about getting together. That isn't going to quite do it. I look so many times at how we work together and the things we wish to aspire and the things we wish to accomplish. When I went to the University of Minnesota 2 years ago, I had no desire to go there. The only thing I knew about Minnesota was every time I picked up the USA Today, there they were in dark blue. And anybody I ever knew from Minnesota had blonde hair and blue ears, and I sure didn't wish to go up there and live. I loved Arkansas. I was happy there. They called me and said, "Would you come up and at least talk to us?" I went up there, and I want to give you some facts and figures because these are accurate. I'm not exaggerating. 5 different people turned the job down at the University of Minnesota. Said to Paul Gill, the athletic director, I said, "Why can't you get anybody to take this job?" He said, "Well, it's really a pretty good job." I said, "It's not as bad as people lead it to believe." He said, "If you want to look at negative things, sure." But he said, "We got a lot of positive things." I said, "Name me one." He said, "Well, Nebraska only beat us by 10. Well, that was pretty impressive. I didn't know he meant 10 touchdowns. Nebraska beat us 84-13, Ohio State 69-10. Michigan, with a strong finish in the fourth quarter, beat us 61-7. As a matter of fact, we lost 17 straight Big Ten Conference games. The average score was 47-14. We gave up 518 points that preceding year, which was a little bit more than our basketball team gave up. Then I found out the defense was a strong part of our football team, and we set a record. Our punter punted the ball, I think it was 87 times during the course of the year. But the point is this: that football program was down not because of an individual. The football program went downhill to the depths of depression where they couldn't get anybody to take the job because people stopped believing you could do things. People stopped working together. Everybody got the feeling, well, we aren't going to win anyway. What difference does it make? And Minnesota was considered the laughing stock in the country. Everybody said, boy, he's crazy to go up there. But the thing went down not because of any other reason except when people stopped believing and say, I don't make any difference. My work, my effort, my time, my involvement isn't going to make any difference in the outcome. And that's why it went down to the depths of depression. 18 months later, we went from an attendance from 30,000 a year before we got there to my second year. We sold 54,000 season tickets, which was 11,000 more than they'd ever sold out in the 103-year history of the school. We averaged a sellout. We took that football team to a bowl game. We finished in the upper division of the Big Ten. Not because of what I did, but what changed that thing around was getting a group of people to believe I do make the difference. And if we're willing to subjugate our welfare, willing to work together, willing to pull everything together, we can be successful. We returned 21 starters off last year's football team this year. They had a fine year. They got a fine coach in John Gutekunst. We redshirted 28 freshmen. And I firmly believe this, that Minnesota is one of the great places to live 9 months out of the year. Even though in the summer the state bird is the mosquito. I do have to be honest with that. We redshirted 28 freshmen and had the whole football team come back. And it's all because you get a group of people working together and pulling together. I then went to the University of Notre Dame. The only thing I put in my contract when I went to the University of Minnesota was if Notre Dame called me, I would be free to go because I've always wished to coach at Notre Dame. That's like with my wife. We've been married together 52 years, 26 apiece. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life with my wife unless Linda Evans calls. I've got that in the contract. I think there's less chance of Notre Dame calling, being honest with you. But in any event, I went to the University of Notre Dame, and, you know, so many times we can find negative things, we can find this. I want to tell you this. Our season was a difficult one in the fact that we lost 5 games to nationally ranked teams on the last play or the last 30 seconds of the football game. We lost 5 football games by a grand total of 14 points. We lost to Michigan by 1. We lost to LSU by 2, etc. We had 27 points taken away from us, or touchdowns taken away. We dropped 2 touchdown passes in the last 15 seconds in the end zone during the course of the season. But I'm not here to complain, and I'm not here to say I have the answers, and I'm not here to say I'm a miracle worker. I feel like the Trappist monks. I don't know if you're familiar with the Trappist monks, but they don't talk. They're only allowed to say a few words periodically, and in this one place, they were only allowed to say 2 words every 3 years. The guy joined the Trappist monks, comes in after 3 years, and said, "What 2 words you wish to say?" He said, "Bad food." Said, "Fine." He went back, he worked, he copied the Bible, came back 3 years later, said, "Hard bed." 3 years later, he brought him back, said, "No TV." Brought him back after another 3 years, which was a total of 12 years. They said, "What 2 words you wish to say?" He said, "I quit." The guy said, "It doesn't surprise me a bit. You've done nothing but bitch since you've been here anyway." I love Notre Dame. I love what it stands for. I love the fact that we've graduated 486 of our football players out of the last 491 have reached their senior class. Notre Dame's a tremendous institution. It's tremendous values. Notre Dame's been awfully good to me, but by the same token, the expectations so many times are so exceptionally high. And everybody we play is at an emotional peak, and everybody performs very, very well against us. We can create an element of doubt in their mind about whether they can beat us or not. They're going to start making mistakes. Michigan, Penn State did not make a single mistake. Southern Cal made only 1 mistake against us, and we made several mistakes. But as you go along, as you look at it and you try to build it up, and you say, okay, how do we win? There's no way in this world that we are going to win at the University of Notre Dame until we get a complete and cooperative teamwork atmosphere, which I think we are starting to generate. And what I want to talk to you a little bit about here today is how we try to go together and put together that team. I congratulate you on the tremendous success you've had. I enjoyed Mr. McCoy's presentation, but I also had the opportunity to read your annual report. And the accomplishments and the things you've achieved is really a tribute to you. I don't come here pretending to preach or lecture to you or talk to you, or to say that I know something you don't know, because I have great respect for the success you've attained. But what I wish to do during the next few minutes is to reiterate some things I believe in how you put an organization together. I came to the University of Notre Dame, the first thing we tried to do was evaluate this situation. Jerry Faust is a beautiful person that I replaced. He obviously is a fine football coach, or he could not have compiled the record he had prior to coming to Notre Dame. But looking at the university situation at Notre Dame last January, we came off of a losing season. We lost our last football game by a score of 58-7. 2 games prior to that, Penn State had us 36-0 at the end of 3 quarters. We had different problems. We lost the all-time leading ground gainer at Notre Dame. We did not have a ball carrier coming back at Notre Dame this year and carried the ball more than twice carried the ball as many times as 10 times in a season. Our quarterback had thrown 1 touchdown and 13 interceptions. We did have fine receivers. We had 1 offensive lineman coming back on an offense that gained 335 yards during the entire course of the year. We had 2 defensive linemen on scholarship. I'm not complaining, but that's fact. We had 2 defensive linemen on scholarship. We've given up more yards than Notre Dame had given up in the last 30 years. With those facts and looking at them, I said, I don't know how many football games we can win, but I'm going to tell you this. We're going to put it on a firm foundation. We aren't going to make any decisions that's going to jeopardize our long-range goals. We aren't going to make a decision to solve an immediate problem that's going to jeopardize the things we wish to do in the long run, which is to be the very best there is, and I love your slogan back there, to be the best there is. Now when you go together and you start putting that thing together, you start putting the organization together, and it starts with people. That's all winning is. Winning is people. Winning is understanding what you're trying to do and the ways you wish to accomplish it. I think the first thing you have to do is you have to look at yourself. And if I could get one thing across to everybody in this organization is in this beautiful environment and annually we need to take a good look at ourselves, what we like, what we don't like, and how we can improve, because in this world we're either going to get better or we're going to get worse. We are not going to stay the same. To me, I think a self-confidence, a self-faith, a belief in yourself is as important as anything in this world. And there's no way in this world you can handle people if you don't have a self-confidence in yourself and what you're doing. We try to set our objectives. You've heard me talk about before, I'm very much goal-oriented. 1966, when I was at South Carolina, and my wife 8 months pregnant with our 3rd child, spent every cent we had in the bank for a down payment on a home. Marvin Bass resigned after 1 month that I was there. Frank Burroughs came in, changed the whole staff. He's a beautiful person, a wonderful coach, but being honest, he said, I think you're in the wrong profession. There I was, unemployed. I really down, I was really despondent. My wife bought me a book. I didn't have anything else to do, and the only thing that's going to change you from where you are today to where you're going to be 5 years from now are the books you read and the people you meet. Ever since that time, I've tried to read at least 1 book every other month on motivation, on self-improvement. The book she bought me was The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. I was down, I was depressed, no money in the bank, unemployed, and he talked about goals, setting goals. And boy, I sat down and got excited. He said, if you're bored in life, if you don't have an excitement when you get up in the morning, if you don't have a burning desire to go do things, he said, you just don't have enough goals. And I figured, well, that must be my problem. So I listed them, 107 of them. Wanted to be on the Tonight Show, wanted to be Coach of the Year, wanted to coach a national championship, land on an aircraft carrier, see the Pope, do all these different things, make a hole in one. 107 of them. Said to my wife, look at those suckers. She said, that's nice. She said, why don't you get a job? So that was good advice, so we had 108. And I'm happy to tell you we've achieved 81 of those goals, which I'm very proud of, but we still have a lot of things that we haven't done. For example, I've never made a hole in one. The closest I came was I made a bogey one time. I'm not a particularly good golfer by any stretch of the imagination, but I believe that goals are important in everything you do in this world. Our goal at the University of Notre Dame, of course, next year will be to win the national championship. And despite the fact we still have some problems, despite a lot of different things, I do think that is obtainable. Number one, a goal must believe that it is obtainable. And goals don't all have to be lofty. Goals don't all have to do with making money. I think there are an awful lot of goals that we can get an excitement about, but if you don't know where you want to go, you're never going to know when you get there. I think that goals are exceptionally important in everything we do. And the people that achieve things are the ones that set out with a destination of where they want to go. The minute your mind believes this goal is obtainable, then the mind will start giving you ways that you can achieve it. But if you write down a goal and say, this is what I like to do, but I'm not sure we're going to do it, then the mind won't give you the ways to achieve the goals. Goals will change people. Goals will change athletes. Goals will change wives. Goals will change children. Without goals, people just basically exist. Sometimes an individual wants to be a professional football player. And all of a sudden, boy, he wants